everybody. Welcome to the Unspoken Truth for the third time today. This is the third live today. It's all happening here in Sydney. We've got some really special guests. I'm joined by my good mate Stuart, Laura, and we've got a new guest here today, April, hopefully to be a regular, bringing it in from the United States at 11 o'clock at night. I can't wait to see the late night energy. I predict halfway through it's going to fade, maybe like that, but we'll have a little bit of fun on the call today and play with the conversation that we've got. We've got a fun show for you here. If this is your first time here at the Unspoken Truth, my name's Robert Bruss. I'm your host. I'm here in Sydney, and we'd like to take a little peek behind the curtain about actually what's going on in the world. We usually look at news-related stories and media and World War III and all of the bad stuff in the world, but today we're going to have a bit of fun, and we're going to give you the unspoken truth behind what does it take to be a man in this world? What happened to manly, masculine men? We're going to play with that and have a little bit of fun. Make sure, if this is your first time here, that you scroll on down in the show notes. You connect with Laura, you connect with April. Make sure you come on over to our Telegram channel as well. There's a whole bunch of unspoken truth over there on Telegram. And we're also over on Twitter and Rumble. And don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube as well. Well, I asked Stuart what he wanted to talk about on the show today, and he said, what does it take to be a man in the world? Tell me, Stuart, what does it take to be a man in the world, and why did you even want to have this conversation with two women on the call, man? You shit stirring stuff right out of the gate, bro.
Well, you know, if you're going to have a conversation, you've got to have it with people who can have a conversation with you about it. So the idea behind this is to have a bit of fun with it, but also just to throw it out there and say, hey, it's confusing. I grew up, I was born in '66, so I'm quite an old man. I have a lot of experiences in life, including a daughter. And my take on being a man has changed massively. I used to think it was big muscles, fast car, and a hot chick on my arm. Now, apparently, it's doing the washing up. So,
dude, you grew up. What happened? You can't grow up and be a man. You got to pick one.
Apparently, a man with an apron on doing the washing up is very attractive, but I don't know. I think I've been played with that one, but that's okay. I don't mind doing the washing up. But it is kind of serious as well. I get confused with the media, social media, and I wanted to hear it from the ladies because I hear different stories from different women, and I know everyone's different and individual, but I do hear it's nice to be protected, it's nice this, it's nice that. But at what point does it become overbearing? At what point does it become macho and patronizing? I don't know. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, good question.
I love that. I love that so much. You just got me so excited by saying that, by the way. So
I can see Laura's body language as she's she's gently leaning in, like, let me at him.
Hey. Let me out of the cage.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're on the Gold Coast. You're separated. You're far enough away.
No, it's so great because I'm 39, and born and bred in Sydney, Australia. Spent 4 years in April in the US of A. That's why I'm April. That's why my brain just disconnected there. But no, I've seen it from different countries. I love America. It's very filled with chivalry. There's pros and cons to that as well. Like the man is the man role, and the woman is the feminine role, which is in the kitchen, which I kind of like. But I also saw the deep, dark, hidden side to that as well. But in Australia, I find that and I'm just coming from a woman's point of view because I'm not a man. I cannot tell you what it's like being a man. But from a woman's point of view, being 39, single, it's just like trying to find that happy medium in a relationship in today's society. There's a lot of people who have never been married at late 30s, early 40s in Sydney, Australia, because a lot of men want to have this single lifestyle. They kind of date you for 2 minutes in time, 2 months, 3 months. They pretend that they're serious, but at the end of it, they just want to have fun. And they're like they're professional daters, I guess you will. But it's hard to find that happy medium. Do you go the chivalry, old-fashioned man in a relationship, or can you find that perfect friendship that is filled with chivalry, but also you can kind of split the bill when you go to have dinner, and the man doesn't have to always buy? It's all that. Anyways, what do you guys think?
April, what do you think? That's a good introduction to it.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Laura, I can piggyback off of you with that because I am a daddy's girl. I'm also a military brat. My dad served in the military. He was in the Army branch for years. And if my definition for him just being my dad and just being manly was just, oh, he's going out every day. He's out in the field. He'd be dispatched to like North Korea, different places we couldn't go. It was just like, oh, my dad is just a good dad. He's providing. And his backstory, he grew up in foster care because his mother died when he was like 9 years old. So, like, all of this stuff that he had to learn was just through, like, happenstance and also through the military. So, and then my brother was my best friend, and he was just like, I always gravitated towards guys. I don't know, I guess because I'm a Taurus, like that earth sign or whatever. But I felt like guys always say, oh, you're just so cool. I can talk to you. And so my brother was that best friend for me. I remember I used to play with his like toys. I used to be like getting on his nerves. And, I would even go in his room and like sleep in his room with him because he was like my friend. So I don't know. I just think that definition of a man is just being able to have that friendship there. And even with my husband, we were great friends before we even married. And so I love the fact that you guys mentioned earlier, just the roles are kind of like, but I'm all about the manly men. I like the chivalry. I have two boys, so I'm all about those manners. You'll get karate chopped if you're not good with your manners. They just know that about me, like, because I know that goes a long way. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a boy's mom. So, yeah, I'm all about the men.
I love it. I love it. Stu, I'll give you my take there. I never really thought much about it, to be completely honest with you. And then when you said that you wanted to have a conversation about this, I thought, how can I add value to this? What can I do? What can I say that's meaningful? And, it dawned upon me, yourself, Stu, because you've got kids and you've got a girl as well. And I've got a daughter who's at the most influential age of all. So she's 16, about to turn 17, right? And you just can't take your eye off the ball for a second with someone like that because she's so easily led astray and all sorts of stuff is going on around her with drugs and alcohol. And one of her best friends was killed about a week ago. So all this like really heavy shit going on in life, right? And she's had the series of boyfriends and different things that have happened in her life. But I can tell when her energy is down because we've got such a close relationship. Something's not quite right. She's quiet. She won't muck around. She won't, poke her in the ribs and tickle her and make fun of her. She makes fun of me. When all of that goes away, I can tell something's wrong. And I figured out that she had this boyfriend who was a little bit, he was unpleasant. I don't know how to say it nicely without saying, I'm not trying to say he's a bad person, right? So she started a new thing at TAFE. So she's gone to TAFE to further her education, and there's a girl at TAFE that her boyfriend didn't like. And he said to her, you can't be friends with her. You shouldn't be friends with her. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why is Danielle having such a bad time at TAFE? There was this, we're opening a new chapter in our lives. We're trying to do new things. We're learning new stuff. You're really excited about this course and you come home and you're all down in the dumps. Like, what's wrong? Eventually I got it out of her. It took about maybe 4 or 5 days to get it out of her. But she said, oh, he's telling me that I can't be friends with her and I can't do this and I can't do that. And I'm like, why are you letting somebody else tell you what to do? Even if I would never tell you what to do. It's up to you to make your own choices. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You have to figure it out. I have to let you make mistakes. I want you to make mistakes. I want you to make really big mistakes so you don't make the same mistakes again. Do them earlier on in life and don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble like that. Don't get in trouble with the police. Don't make a mistake that big. But you're going to make mistakes with your friends, with relationships and all of these things. And I'm trying to talk her through this process. And in the end, where it ended up was this. I said to her, you got to have some self-respect. Do I tell you what to do? And she goes, no, you've never told me what to do. And I said, is there an expectation of behavior? A little bit to your point, April, it's about manners. It's about being on time. It's about doing the right thing. She said, yeah, there's expectations and I know what those expectations are. And I said, but I'm not trying to control you, am I? And she said, no. And I said, well, why are you allowing him to control you? Why are you allowing him to tell you who can be friends and what you can and can't do, where you can and can't go. And where it ended up was this: you need to have enough self-respect for yourself where you don't allow somebody to treat you like that to make you feel that way. Maybe I can be your benchmark. I don't scream and shout you. I don't hit you. I don't tell you what you can and can't do, where you can and can't be, how much money you can and can't spend. I don't put any constraints on you. I'm raising a woman. I'm not raising a girl. And unless I treat you like a woman, you're going to behave like a girl. So I treat you like a grown woman to get the behavior that I want out of you, and you behave exactly the way that I want you to, and we have this fantastic relationship. And she's like, yeah. And I said, the standard for a boyfriend needs to be me. Unless they care about you the same way and look after you the same way, well, then maybe that standard is a little bit too low. Maybe the benchmark is too low. Not saying that, you want to have a boyfriend like me, but that's the standard of care that you're looking for. I don't know, Stu. That's kind of, you're a little bit older, man. Your kids are older. Did you have a similar experience with your daughter?
I did. I went through a nasty divorce with the mother of my children when my daughter was 9. And we ended up having a very, very close relationship as a result of that. She would talk to me about all sorts of things, including periods and all the sort of things that normally is a conversation with the mother. And there was no holds barred. We just conversations. Gender was just different. It was biological, not anything else. And to me, she's a person. And she's taught me a lot as well. I was brought up, men should do certain things, be the provider, look after the women, what have you. But you know what? I think the next generation, you're a person. You're not a male or a female. You're a person. And if one of you stays at home who happens to be female, or one of you stays at home who happens to be male, so be it. And the question more is, how does that make the man feel if he's brought up to be a traditional male and he falls in love with a girl who's an Amazonian woman? Where does that leave him? And I think the idea behind this is he's got to adapt and he's got to grow as a person and say, hey, she happens to be female, but she's a person and I love her and I want to be with her. And the conversations I've had with my daughter have sent me into quite a bit of trouble with her dads. So she came to me once and she said, hey, Dad, I've got a boyfriend. It was the first boyfriend she had and it was getting quite serious. And I said to her, look, if you need any help, I'll pay for a hotel room so that you can go and be safe and comfortable, because I know you're going to go and have sex. Just let me know. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to say you should or shouldn't. Up to you, your body, your life, your mind. Think about it. And she said, look, I'm not ready yet, but thanks for the offer. And then she said to me about a week later, she said to me, hey, Dad, all of my girlfriends at school want me to go and talk to your dads. And I said, look.
That was for me and you, not to share.
I am uniquely me, and I'm growing and changing every day, and I'm not going to tell anyone else how to live, especially people who come from strong cultural backgrounds where girls aren't expected to have sex before marriage. But then again, should they listen to their cultural background if that's not what they want to do? And this is kind of what I'm throwing out here, because I don't believe in right or wrong. I don't believe in mistakes. I just believe there's what's happened and what you choose to make it mean. And as I get older, I start to see grey more, especially on my beard, unfortunately. But life is an unfoldment. You do learn as you go, and the more you open your mind, the more you see the opportunities and what you don't know. I think for me, the older I get, the more I realize that I don't know so much. I realize that I don't know more than I know. And that's kind of cool, because that means I've got so much more to give and to grow from. So that's why I have these conversations with other people with similar but different backgrounds who can go, hey, Stu, look, from my point of view as an American, and by the way, I think we must be related because my dad's Army as well. So I'm an Army brat. My dad was British Army. He went from school to Welbeck, which was the college attached to the Army, then to Shrivenham, which is the University of the Army, then into the Army, and worked all his life until he had to retire. So fellow Army brat, I knew we had something going on. So that's there you go. It's an interesting life growing up as an Army brat, because my dad was very much a case of don't do as I do, do as I say.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult way to grow as a person, because it's my rules. And well, his rules, not my rules, but his rules were my rules, because otherwise I got a thick ear. So I was brought up in the old school.
Yeah.
And I ended up bringing up my kids like that as well, which to an extent I regret, because it was always a case of it's bedtime. And if there's any arguments, they knew about it. But I was always told my children were polite. But were they polite because they were scared of me? Or were they polite because I was a good dad? I don't know.
Wow.
But they need order. They need order in the house. Otherwise, the karate chop that was so wielded so easily out there a moment ago.
Yes, I'm so glad that you responded back with that, because I do believe the core of myself, because I have a little OCD. I'm very like by the book, and so because my dad was hardcore with that strict, like, I mean, we had one dish, if it's dirty, everything comes out the cabinet, he was in that mode of like, I gotta shine my boots until you see my face in reflection. So I value the fact that it taught me the core of just being a person that had rules, and just like being able to, function. Because I've met a lot of people that in life, like later in college, and they were just like, we don't really know how to wash clothes. We don't know how to da 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 da. And I'm like, I've been doing this since I was like 9 or 10,
Yeah.
So I became the mom of my friend group. But it was a lot of responsibility, as you say, and that pressure of just trying to do everything right. And, so the manly part with my dad, he gave me that structure and that organization and the strictness that I need to kind of push myself, even in business. But yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of passed on to me, and now I kind of reflect a little on my boys. But then I kind of look back hindsight, and I'm not as harsh as my dad and my mom were, but it's just like, you better be polite. But yeah, it's just amazing how having my father in my life, it has made me very, very strict in some ways.
Well, there's two examples of two really masculine dads, right? Two army dads. What about you, Laura? Your dad, he's a physio or chiro, right?
Well, yeah, his trade was physiotherapy back
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and he had a practice for about 15 years in Hornsby area. And but my
Was he
dad was
strict?
always he was always very busy, and so Mum was the one who was with us 24/7, sort of thing, taking us to activities and dancing and singing, and just we did everything. And I even did motocross at the same time. Like I was doing ballet classes and motocross, and everyone's like, "What?" But no, we're really blessed with our upbringing. At the core of our family was love. There was a lot of love there, and respect. I look back at what we had. I'm 39 now. There was definitely an air of, if there was parents that came over to see my parents, then we would be the children that hung out in the background and sort of respected the adults. I know that's not really the conversation we're having today, but like, I don't really see that today in society. There's a lot of iPads and a lot of kids crazily running around a household. If you go over to visit, it's like the kids are taking over now. And I don't know whether it's anything to do with the fact that parents are petrified to smack, and again, we don't have to get into that conversation either, but they're afraid to like be told that they're abusing their kids when they're just strictly trying to control the household, right? And I'm condoning smacking at all, but I'm just saying that like there's definitely a difference in culture now with technology. There's definitely a different dynamic, but in our house there was a lot of love. I was definitely with my mum more than my dad, but my dad brought in the money for the house. He was a gentle giant, just a beautiful, lovable person, very educated, book smart, university sort of driven, which my brother kind of went in his path. I'm more of the entrepreneur spirit. I'll do it myself. Watch me. But no, just because he didn't really play a big role in my time, but he was definitely the beautiful, loving support that I had. And I have always had a very near and dear connection to my dad, because he's just didn't like do what you guys have just been saying, like you have to do what I say, but he just sort of did, and we just went along with what he did. If that made any sense, he didn't use his words. He was just being, and because he was being, then we could learn from that. So yeah, it's a bit
That's
different.
the right style of
Yeah.
leadership, right? As a parent, is you're not being dictatorial, and it's very easy to go flying off the handle and screaming and shouting and smacking and, you know, threatening, all those sorts of things. But
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
you
not
don't have to
saying
do that.
he never went off the handle.
Oh,
Actually,
it
there
did.
was twice in his life. So my dad's like this gentle giant, and the only time you can trigger his buttons is if you lie. That's his button. And so if you push it, oh, watch out, leave the house. He's Croatian. So I mean, Aussie, he's born here, but like, you know, mum and dad are Croatian. So the Croatian
Fiery.
fire comes out to play. Watch out. And by the way, while we're here, I'd like to say to all the viewers in the comments, thank you so much for commenting. Reach out to Will on my channel. Thanks so much for commenting. Deb, hey Deb, that's a relation of mine. Stegich, how are you? Thanks so much. And also, I want to kind of just go over to that little comment that Ed said. At first, I was like, oh, that's an interesting comment, but I think we should talk about it for a second, guys. What do you think? So Ed said, men need to be monsters. Hang on with me, guys. They will protect their loved ones and stand up for those who can't. So although that kind of sounds like a ooh comment, let's look at that. In this day and age, everyone's got their own intentions.
Yeah.
Good, bad, and in the middle, whatever. I think that us, if we're all in a relationship, if we're married, if we're single with a partner, I like to call it now, because I've been through an experience lately where I had to reset my whole life, and that I'm blessed for that experience. I'm so grateful. I learned so much about the world, but one of my learnings was, don't trust everyone. Everyone, just be cautious, get to know them, build the trust, and then based on their behavior, decide who they are, if they're good intention or bad intention. That's my learning of late. So now what I do is I build a circle of trust within my life and my mum, because she's very trustworthy, and my immediate family, and the ones that have been in my life a very long time, and I really 100% trust them. Now, if anyone's done anything that the behavior is not trustworthy to me, then they're outside of the inner circle, and they're not in my inner circle. That means they don't get to come over to my house. They don't get to see Laura for Laura. They get to see professional Laura and at arm's length, right? So I believe, in my experience, that when you're maybe married or in a relationship, you have to have your inner circle thing, and you have to have that agreement with your partner as well, because otherwise, especially in this day and age, I've seen so many divorces, and my parents went through divorce, and I just believe it was because they were both too weak in order to protect their inner house, their inner circle. And so even though the comment that Ed just said sounded to me like, oh, but at the core of that, what I took out of sort of what he was saying about the man has to protect, I think it's more of a partnership, an agreement with a man and a woman, or whoever it is, 2 men, 2 women, whatever the relationship is. I think it's an agreement that you both have to protect the household. And I use it from saying inner circle, but because there's so many people that have bad intentions out in this world, and they look like sheep. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think I've had that conversation with Ed a little bit as well. I think one of the things that he's referring to as well, and I suffer from this as well, and I'd be interested to get your take on it as well, Stu, is that I feel like inside of me is like I'm part savage inside of me. And as an infantry guy, I just want to go and shoot people in the face and kick in doors and jump out of planes and get in gunfights like all day long. There's a savage inside of me, but there's also a philosopher inside of me, and there's a historian inside of me, and there's also a kind, loving parent and father, and there's a lover and a partner, and there's like so many different shades of me inside of me. But the problem that I have is all of them are trying to come out at once. And I'm like this like crazy person. Like 1 minute I could be like, who's beeping the horn? Like, what is it? And then I'm like, oh, hi, it's Robert here. How are you? Like in every second of the day, I'm a different version of myself. And there's all of these things inside of me. And I think what Ed's referring to is that you need to have that ability inside of you, and the ability to protect your family and to protect the ones 100%. That you love. I sent a picture to, I think I laughed with you, Laura, about this. I sent a picture. I was doing chin-ups down the park in the morning, and the bar was a bit wet, and I took my shirt off and I wiped the bar, but it was still wet from the dew. And I must have done, I don't know, 30 or 40 chin-ups or something like that. And my hand, I went like that, and I went, oh, that hurt my hand. And my little computer podcasting hands were suddenly a little bit torn up, and I was like, it's all right, it's not that bad. I kind of like just press, and I got back up on the bar, and because my hands were like dry, but the bar was like cold and wet, it really tore my hands up like badly. And I hadn't done that many chin-ups, and I took a photo and I sent it to Susie, and I said, look, this is what men do. Men do this. This is men. She's like, what are you doing? What are you even training for? And I said, everything, every eventuality. And there's that like savage part of me inside of me, right? Being ready for anything, being ready to protect, be ready to, at a moment's notice to be able to protect the people that you care about that are near to you, and to protect yourself as well. I want to be able to be healthy enough and fit enough to run away if I have to run away, because that's the defaulted setting that I have. But if I have to stand and fight, I can. I'll be okay. So there's a lot of that type of masculinity is not promoted anymore. That type of masculinity
it's
is
still there though in culture.
It is.
It really is,
because that's part of human nature, right?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah. I know that the culture kind of changed with our generation that came through, and now the new generation. However, if you go to America, that type is still very there in society. It's still there, very much so. Yeah. By the way, I did not see a photo with your shirt off. Just saying, you like, oh, I showed you the photo and I ripped my. And I was like, no, just so we're clear, everyone. I did not see a photo like that.
Laura and I are not sending photos like that. No.
No.
What do you think, Stu? What are your thoughts there, mate?
I've got so many comments. It's I put another kid at my school in hospital when I was 12. He really pissed me off, and I've got this switch that I just go red, and the red mist, and I don't care if they're twice the size of me. I don't care if he's got all his friends around me. It's on. And anyway, I lost my shit with this guy, and I put him in hospital. And it was at that point I said to myself, hey, firstly, thought I was going to get in a lot of trouble. And I didn't want my parents to hear that I was getting into fights and what have you. And my other concern was, if I can do that when I'm 12, what will I be capable of when I'm a grown man? And I thought, well, do I want to end up behind bars because someone tooted at me in the traffic and I lost my temper? And I thought, well, no. But the problem I had at that stage was, instead of just saying, hey, I'm not going to be an aggressive person, all I did was I learned to bottle it up. And this is what a lot of guys do. So all I did was, whenever something irritated me, I just shut it down, buried it inside, shut it down, buried it inside. And sooner or later, I became a volcano. And the only place I could let it out was on the sports field. So I became known as an animal on the sports field, which was fine because it got it out of my system. But as I got older, I've learned that there's a much kinder way of dealing with these sort of things. And I'll use an analogy which a really good friend of mine uses, and she calls it catching Wolfie. So Wolfie is sort of a creature she created in her mind that is constantly saying to her, bite, snarl, growl, attack. So someone cuts her up in the traffic, little Wolfie's sat on this shoulder going, hey, get him, get him. And she now verbalizes inside her own mind, shut up, Wolfie. And she stops this outside person who was actually her past experience from allowing her to be who she was in the past. And what I like about that is, as human beings, we are given the ability to think. And with the ability to think, when something happens to us, we can choose how we react to it. So someone cuts you up in the traffic, you can go, hey, that's cool. I like this lane too. Or you can go, you dickhead, and you can get really angry and you can toot your horn at them. And the next thing you know, again, it's all on. So for me, the mindset and the learnings from this is the most powerful thing in any human, male or female, is between their ears. And if you can learn to manage that in such a way that you no longer react to those things, your subconscious will actually no longer react to it anyway, because we're all habit creatures. If I don't react for 20 or 30 times, then my new habit is me. And the new me is I don't do this anymore. And it sounds like a great theory, but I still do get annoyed with people in the traffic, so I haven't quite mastered that one. But I get annoyed because I may not go home to my loved ones if someone does something stupid in the traffic, and that really gets me. It's my life, not theirs. But long answer, Rob. There you go.
I love that. We should
Yep.
reference the interview or podcast that we did yesterday, Rob, because we talked about mindset. And I just think, yes, you're totally right in saying, like, I'm still not perfect. I still blah, blah, blah. But we need to work on our mindset every single day. It's something that everyone needs to be aware of and conscious of. And hey, if you want to know more about that topic, go to the podcast we did yesterday with Rob, because we totally unnutted that a little bit more, didn't we, Rob?
Yeah, it's a fun topic. April, tell us about how old are your boys? You said you got two boys. I have two boys too, but they're grown up. So one is 22 and the other one's about to turn 21. So it feels like I'm only like 32 myself. So it feels like it's gone by so quickly that sometimes I have to remind myself that I actually have adult men that are part of me, but they have their own lives, right? They don't live with me, then I don't really speak to them that much. I talk to them every now and then periodically, but they're busy with their lives. And I think when I was 20 years old, I was like gallivanting on the other side of planet Earth. Must have like been terrifying. I can pick up the phone and call them anytime, right? My parents couldn't pick up the phone. I was in some stupid war zone on the other side of planet Earth somewhere, and they couldn't do that. They were like at home waiting for me to call. So, but what about you? How old are your kids, April, and how do you handle these things relating to your boys?
I have the best of both worlds. So my oldest is 21, and then I have a 12-year-old as well. So my background, I was a single mom with my oldest for years, just going through life. I finished school and I bought a home, and I was just like, I don't care about guys. And then I met the love of my life, my husband. And so, we ended up having our second son, who's 12. And Stewie just reminded me, I'm going to throw in, I just remember this quote that when he said something at the ending of what his closing was, I was just thinking, it came up in my mind, like, it's just like that old saying that a person that can control or can't control their spirit, which is that anger, is like a city without walls, And so like, that's one of the things that my husband and I are both Tauruses. Because that thing we're like attracts like, so we're both down to earth and Taurus signs, and just and we're in our own world. And with our boys, both of us, we have had our issues in the past with just anger and trying to, because we're usually like really nice people, but if you tick us off, we can get a little bit, feisty. So having the boys, with my oldest by myself for a while, I just had to be an example for him, because I felt like, I tell people my oldest son, he saved my life. Like, I got everything together when I had my son, so, and so even just in action, and he sees me maybe get into maybe a dispute or anything, like just day-to-day things, I just always refer to myself and think like, would I want him to see me respond that way, And so he helped me with that. But when I got married, being that my husband and I were like, I would say gentle tigers, we kind of had to have issues where we would clash, and kind of get to know like what kind of pet peeves we have and what pisses each other off. So we kind of got, after maybe year three or four, we were kind of figuring out, how it goes. But I would say we maybe will argue maybe once or twice a year, because we get to a point where we kind of know, we've been married about 13 years now, where we kind of know how to kind of filter through things. And I know part of my husband, he's a trainer. He does get out a lot of his aggression through training. He does a lot of HIIT training. He's very like, I'm not in a gym, I'm outside, And so at one point when we were, doing life year 3 or 4, I realized that he needed that outlet of like working out, and especially with, a hard job. He works for Virginia Commonwealth University here in Richmond, Virginia. So it's like a school environment, and he's always a lot of pressure because like a lead in his position. And so I was just like, ooh, let him work out so that he can, but other than that, he's really sweet, but of course you have some things and people and places and circumstances that can get you ticked off. So, we've kind of worked through our kind of knowing nuances and what we kind of can handle. we've kind of figured out what we can do and how to avoid blowing up. And then with my second son being born, we're married. We had him, first year of marriage. And so like, I was just like, I have my oldest, we have him, and, we're doing this, we're doing life, we have the family. So let's try to be a little bit, I guess with age, it kind of mellowed us out a little bit more. So we're like that old couple that just kind of like wants to hang out and chill and not get into anything. So we avoid situations just to be in our own chill zone. But yeah, so I was just, I think for my life and for my sons, I just try to represent Rob in a way that I can just, hey, would I be proud if they knew I responded this way or whatever? And just trying to find other ways to get out the aggression, because I do work out as well. I find that cardio kickboxing helps me because something about the punching and like hitting, like I turn into a whole nother person. It's such a positive outlet for me because I'm just like, I need that, and I think everybody needs that. What do you guys think? I think we all need that. Just get it out, So that's my way of doing it.
You've got to get it out. There's no doubt about it. Folks, let's take a little bit of a break just here for a sec. I just want to remind everybody that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. Well, I want to continue the conversation here by sharing a little bit of a historical reference that I shared with the 4 of you here, or the 3 of you here before we kicked off. And it's about a place in Sydney called Manly. And I titled this episode, "What does it take to be manly in this world?" And if you're a Sydney-sider or even an Aussie, you'd be like, what do you mean? What does it take to be Manly Beach in this world? Because that's what you associate Manly with. But not a lot of people know the story that when Arthur Phillip, when they came to Australia with the first fleet, he was rowing the boat across the harbour, or his minions were rowing the boat across the harbour, and there was an Aboriginal man standing on the headland there as you come into Manly, and he was standing in that quintessential pose with the spear in one hand and his foot on the knee of his other leg like that. And he looked over at him and he said, "Wow, that's the most manly man that I've ever seen." And from here on in, the name of that location was Manly, because must have been all the Aboriginal men there were real men there. I don't know the story properly. I don't even know if the story is true, but that's what was written down. I can't verify any of that, of course, but it's a cool story, and it sort of makes sense that somebody would think that. And it kind of got me thinking as well, as I was doing that, one of the things that's missing from our society, and I'd love to get your take on it. Personally, I experienced this. There is no rite of passage for a teenage boy to become a man. And I think that we've lost all of the rituals that used to be part of humanity and society before we lived in the modern world as we do. And there are ways to help people bridge that gap and to understand, but when is it that I actually became a man? Was it when I started shaving? Was it when I had my first girlfriend? Was it when I had my first beer? Was it when I turned 18 legally? Am I a man? I don't really know. But there is no rite of passage. And if you look to ancient cultures, and even some cultures today, they have these rites of passage where the young boy goes out with the hunter or the warrior, and then they go and grab something to eat for the village or whatever, right? You know the story, right? I don't have to explain it to you. For me personally, my rite of passage was when I was in the Royal Australian Navy. So I joined the Navy when I was 17. I was a young kid, didn't know anything about the world. I travelled a little bit with my mum and dad, but really didn't know anything about the world or working or anything like that. So I was kind of moulded by that military ideal, and it was not a bad place to be moulded. They're all good things there. if you take away the brainwashing of some of the stuff that goes on there, most of it's pretty good, right? They teach you how to be on time, shine your shoes, iron your clothes, and they teach you how to be a good person. You can't be a jerk, particularly in the Navy, right? Because you're living close quarters with other people in confined spaces for long periods of time. So you have to learn how to get along with people. And so it was really good in that aspect. So there's a rite of passage there. But when I got into the fleet after I'd finished all of my training, man, oh man, there was some absolute jerks on the first ship that I was on. I was bullied really badly on that first warship that I was on. I had a terrible experience. And one morning, this is where the rite of passage story comes to a head, right? I was being bullied so badly as the new guy that joined the ship. So traditionally what would happen is you would finish your training and you would join the ship when it came back to Sydney. But I was posted to a warship called HMAS Brisbane, and at the time it was in Singapore. So I went on a little adventure. I got on a plane, I went to South Australia, went to the Cocos Islands, I flew up to Malaysia and caught the train down to Singapore and joined the ship. So what a cool way to be a young person, right? I get to do all these things and all in the government's dime. Anyway, I joined the ship. Everything was going okay when I first got there. And then there was a leading seaman there that, 2 ranks above me, in charge of me, that was kind of given me, and I was just the biggest pain in his ass. And he was just awful to me. And I'd never been bullied ever in my life, ever, never experienced it. I was a footballer, played reps, I was always at the top of my class, like I'm really good academically, I'm really good physically. I never had any problems with anything like that and never really even saw it or even encountered it in my life. And here I was on the receiving end of it. I didn't know how to handle it. And anyway, this went on for probably 3 months. And one morning we left, and I remember this, and the reason I remember this distinctly is because I went outside on the waist of the ship and I looked up, and it was the first time in 3 months that I'd seen blue sky. So I joined the ship in Singapore, and all the forest fires in Indonesia covered all of Asia. So everywhere we went, it was just grey skies and smog the whole time. And as we tracked north towards Japan, we got away from all of that smoke, and I remember that. And I remember looking up and going, oh, blue sky, wow, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful, crisp, cold morning, right? And as I looked to my left, there's this guy walking up the side of the passageway. And I could just see he was coming for me. He had this look in his eye. And I thought to myself, keep coming, pal, and I'm going to huck you over the side. And I was like ready to, and he was only a little fella as well, right? And I'd probably had 20 kilos in the guy. And I was ready just to grab him by the front of his pants and his like scruff and just huck him in the water like that. That's how badly he was bullying me. I was ready to kill the guy. I was ready to murder him. And it's like the savage inside of me just wanted to come out and do that. But I didn't. As the story goes on, I'm still here and he's still alive, and that happened. But I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I think part of the problem that I experienced was I never really understood what it meant to be a man in the world. I never understood my place in the world. And what he was doing was putting me in my place, albeit in a way that was really repressive and nasty and mean and unnecessary. But that was kind of my introduction to manhood. And I had to really man up to be on the receiving end of this guy continuously. But unbeknownst to him, he had no idea how close he was to the end of his life. And there's a couple of other opportunities that I had to actually, if you've ever been on a warship, you go up and down the ladders. They're really steep, right? You got to up and down, and I was in front of the guy, and I could have just turned around and gone, little right slipper into the face. Oh, sorry about that, mate. Fell down, 3 meters of ladders and cracked your head on the bottom. Don't know what happened to him. He was there 1 minute, and then he wasn't the next. And it took all of the restraint in my life to actually realize that was not going to get me anywhere. And then that's when I sort of realized that, okay, now I'm actually in control of myself and in control of my reactions to all of these things. It was a horrible experience. And I got off that ship in Sydney, came back to Sydney, and I went to the posting that I was supposed to be on. Went to HMAS Melbourne, and I was like, as I walked up the gangway, I saluted and walked on the ship, and the clouds parted, the sky's clear, and there was angels singing. It was like that guy was gone. He was out of my life forever. And yeah, life was good. Beyond that initial experience, it was really good, but it was a rite of passage for me. It was horrendous. It was awful, and it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be. What do you folks think about rites of passage for young men? I think that should be something that's mandatory. Do you want to go?
Yeah, it's difficult because we're not in tribes anymore. We're not in groups, social groups of.
That was a tribe I was in. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
well, I wasn't welcome.
That was a forces tribe. I understand it, but it's not kind of what the tribe I'm talking about. The tribe I'm talking about is a family where you've got the grandparents and the parents and the kids and the toddlers and what have you. I think for me, this conversation has really been useful for me because I like the fact that there is no rites of passage, because those days are gone. We're no longer part of a tribe where we go out and hunt food, unless you're in certain parts of America. My sister's, one of her best friends is married to an American, and they live out in the country, and the boy goes and shoots a deer. That's kind of his thing when he gets to a certain age. And they takes the blood from the deer and he rubs it on his forehead, and it's a ritual. But for me, I think most modern people won't go through that, and hopefully all the deers will stay alive. But it's more a case of, as I see my boys grow up, the ones who are becoming men are the ones who take responsibility for themselves. And by that, I mean they take ownership of their own lives, and they take responsibility for who they are and who they are not. Unfortunately, a lot of young people, male and female, do not take responsibility for themselves, and they hide behind their parents, they hide behind social media, and they blame the rest of the world. And to me, that's a place where, to use one of my dad's expressions, they've got no spine. They've got no get up and go. They are afraid of their own shadow. So to me, being a man actually is being okay with the fact that you see a movie and you cry, or something happens and you share it with someone else, and it's a really special moment. And if one of your mates, I got a few good mates, we go out into the bush and we light fires and we'll talk to each other and what have you. And sometimes I'll say something really vulnerable, and the blokey blokes amongst the group will just laugh and say, "Hey, Stu, you big puff." And then later on, they'll come back to me and go, "Hey, what did you mean by that? That's really interesting." So they put on this macho image because they haven't taken on the responsibility of being who they are and accepting who they are not. So, but Rob, going back to your thing about the rage, I had a similar situation. The school I was at had a cadet force, and we used to go out every year. There was a cadet force group going out into the woods in England, and we'd carry the old 303 rifles with us, and we'd be given rounds of bullets which were blank, so they didn't have a bullet in the end of it. And on this particular time when I went, there was a teacher there who I hated with a passion. We just did not get on. And we're in this situation where we're coming to this end of this fake battle, and I found a live bullet on the ground, because real soldiers use these grounds as well. So it's sort of an army range, if you like. And I looked at this, and I looked at my rifle, and I saw him standing over there. And I thought, this is a defining moment in my life, because I seriously thought about blowing his brains out. And I thought, well, if I do that, then I can drop the rifle, I'll pick up someone else's rifle, and by the time anyone realizes that asshole is being shot, no one's going to know. But something stopped me, and to this day, I don't know what it was. Actually, I tell a lie. I do know what it was. I didn't know if it was the right kind of round. I didn't know if it was the right ammunition. And I thought, if I put the wrong ammunition in this thing and I pull the trigger, my face is going to end up on the back of that tree over there. Mm. So it was fear for my own safety that stopped me from doing this.
So it's the easiest thing in the world when you're faced with the decision like that, right? Like, wrong ammunition or not, it would have been the easiest thing to actually, it's the same as that dude, man. It would have been the easiest thing in the world for me to pick him up and just huck him over the side and like make sure he hit the side of the ship on the way down so he's not swimming. Like, it would have been really easy for me to do that. And I don't think I would have had a moment's remorse. But then you have to live with yourself. Like, and I think part of the problem that I faced is, and what I'm trying to go to, with rites of passage, and I think girls go through the same thing. I think it's even harsher for girls, because men, it's about physical stuff, right? It's about challenging yourself physically and overcoming a physical challenge, or hunting or killing that deer or whatever it is in the old days. But women never went through that rite of passage. You went through a rite of passage by having a baby in the old days. It was like horrendous. If you ever watch any of those like old school shows that they show you how hard it was, and what percentage of women died in childbirth, for heaven's sake. Something like 30 or 40% of them died, and then the babies died as well. It's like just a horrendous. That's the rite of passage to become a woman, is you have the baby and don't die. And for men, it's out there hunting and doing all those things. And I didn't have a strong enough male role model in my life to actually be able to understand those things. And I think that that's missing a little bit in society as well. And the attack on masculinity in society as well is saying, you know, you can't be like that anymore. We don't live in tribes. We're not savages anymore. You can't behave like that. But unless you have that sort of rite of passage or somebody to walk you through that process to help you become that mature man and that responsible person, as Stu says, it's very, very hard. And I was left languishing. I was left to languish. What do you think, Laura?
Oh, well, I'm not a man myself, but I'm sitting here just listening to what you guys have to say, and it's a real thing. My friend over here, Josie, says tribes are so important for those boys/men who have no idea how to take control of their lives for whatever reason. We have a fabulous group in Australia called Men. It's fairly new, but has already proven just how important family and community tribes are, especially for men. Women gather and chat with everyone, which is so true, and bond so much easier than men. I don't know about that, but I know that we are the chatters, and there is something to say, but that men are sort of more like black and white, maybe, like more like the driving force. Like, I'll go to work and I'll do the hunter and the gatherer thing. They're more like that, and the women are more like the emotional. And I guess that's why we have the babies and we're the nurturers and all that stuff. And you know, I think in this day and age in our society, a lot of that is being like pushed
Yeah, I was going to
aside.
say, Laura, I'm going to like get the beeper out because you're going to get us cancelled because you're being too traditional.
Me, I know,
Yeah,
right? I
That's
know.
traditional, what you're saying, yeah.
But you shun who you truly are at the core of it. That's when we have confusion, and that's when all this stuff is happening and all that. But I will say that Joe says, lol, I will say that all I can say is from my experience, seeing my own brother go through a divorce and not really have my father there for a big chunk of when he needed a father figure there. He went through so much, and what you guys are saying, I kind of saw within my brother. There was a lot of lost thing, and if he had have had this tribe that Josie's talking about, then it really would have helped him when he was, you know, coming into the manhood stage. It would have helped him nut out the stuff that he needed to nut out, which he couldn't because dad wasn't around at that time. So anyways, I understand what you guys are saying, and this is a great discussion. If you have any comments, put it in the comments below.
Yeah, and we've got our own little tribes. You've got your own tribe called the Inspire Greatness Community. Folks, head over to community.laurajane.com.au and check out that community there. There's a tribe of girls doing all sorts of really awesome stuff over there. I've got my little community called The Unspoken Truth. You can find that over at theunspokenTruth.com.au. April, I'd love to get your take on the boys' rite of passage. You've got a young man there in your household, a 12-year-old. Will there be a rite of passage, or will there just be a karate chop into responsibility, which is the modern day version of fucking rite of fucking passage?
I've done a lot today with the kicking, kickboxing, the whole thing. It's just a lot.
That's it, baby. You got to.
But yeah, my 12-year-old is, I don't know if you are aware here, but we still have virtual school for kids that wanted to stay on there to, you know, still be able to gain credits that will count towards like high school and all of those things. Because he did his first year here for 6th grade, and that was his first year in middle school. So he elected after everything hit with COVID-19 to stay online because my 12-year-old is a little bit of an introvert. So he thrived really well with his grades and everything. He's just like this, I call him Dexter. He's behind his computer. He gets his work done. He's done by 2. And I guess because his brother's 21, he's the old soul and he thinks he's like 20 anyway. So he does really well. So he's, I call him, I say he's more mature than I am, but but he has had instances with just with the bullying and with also you know, he plays a lot in the neighborhood because he's one of those boys that still climbs trees and does all that. But a lot of times I feel like a lot of the bullies gravitate to the kids that are more responsible or trying to, you know, I guess I would say the word is more grounded. So I'm blessed to have his dad here, and they're able to have those talks, and he spends a lot of time with him. And so he was having an issue with someone in the neighborhood. So what my husband did is that like let's go outside, and so they start throwing the football together, and so the guys come out and join because, you know, they want to be a part. So he was able to resolve, you know, things with, you know, my son, and and the young guy just by them going out and playing together, and it just works out. So I'm blessed to have my husband here to kind of buffer those things. But 21, my 21-year-old, of course, he went off to college. He finished it out early. He's taken up culinary arts, and so he got his certifications for all these different things for under his culinary belt. So he finished things a lot quicker. So, but while he was staying in the dorm, you had the pressures to party and to drink and smoke and do all types of things. And my son is, we don't do any of that here. We're very much healthy. We're like always working out, and he's never seen us really indulge in those things. So rites of passage it did come up where things were like, he's like, the guys want me to go do this and I don't know, what should I do? So I kind of like stand back and say, well, what do you think you should do? Or do you think it's cool? Do you drink? And he's like, no. I said, well, do you smoke or you vape or anything? And he's like, no. And I'm just like, well, I think they'll like you even, you can still hang out and have fun, but you don't absolutely have to, indulge or whatever. So I guess that's the college version of rites of passage. But I know for me personally, I did have both my boys through natural childbirth. It's like a community of people here now where everybody's going vegan, organic. People are having natural childbirth. They're going back into breastfeeding. It's just this big thing,
Hey, you're going to get us canceled as well. Cut it out with the traditional bullshit immediately. Cut it out.
I mean, I have friends that are like really doing it. Like they just want to do the whole thing. And for me, I know for me, I did not want to have them natural. I was pressing the button to have more pain medication come, but I'm part of the 2% of women that it just doesn't work. So I did not get it because, I did not have a natural childbirth with both of my boys because I elected to do that. So that's a rite of passage that I was kind of forced into. But now I'm just like, oh my God. So, but it was a good experience because now that I have friends and communities that I'm around that I can go to and talk to the different moms that are getting ready to have babies. And, they have those questions like, what do you think? What do I expect? Is da da da. Just like, girl, it's going to hurt.
Yes, it will. Not that I know, but I've heard.
Yeah, Laura's laughing, going, ha ha. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And me and Stu know full well what it's like.
Yeah. Did you pass out?
No, a little more. Exactly. Well, folks, we're bumping up against an hour here. Let's just go around the room quickly. I want to close out this show, but let's get a final yes or no and some final comments on the lead question. What does it take to be manly in this world, and is it even possible? Stu, I'll let you take the lead there, mate.
I actually don't think it is possible to be manly anymore, and the reason I say that is because I don't think it's relevant. Being a good human being is being a good human being, and whether you're male, female, what you identify as, all that's just your own decision now. And I think that the young people watching this will be looking at us going, why are you making this complicated? I spoke to my daughter about her friendship group, and in her friendship group, she had all sorts of different cultural backgrounds, all sorts of different sexualities, and all sorts of different ways of being. And I said to her, do you treat your gay friends any differently? Or do you treat your girlfriends any differently from your boyfriends? And she goes, Dad, they're people.
Yeah.
They're my friends. So
there's some wisdom right there.
Well, you do learn from your kids. And I think that removed a lot of the horse shit out of my life, because I was brought up putting people into boxes. You're a man, you're a woman, you're white, you're black. You are a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're a whatever, but actually they're not, they're them. And I might be a Muslim, I might be a Christian, and I might be an atheist, but at the end of the day, whatever I am, I'm me. And that might change tomorrow. So for me, being manly is a concept which is completely irrelevant now. And if you try and be a gentleman and open a door, some women will look at you and say, don't patronize me. Sorry, don't patronize me. And I think it's a minefield. So just be yourself, whether you're a boy or a girl, be yourself. And that will be you being an adult or being responsible. So I didn't think I'd say that today, but I actually think being manly is a context which is irrelevant now.
Yeah, I love it. Good, nice closing remarks, nice closing thoughts. April, what do you think?
I think I'll piggyback off of Stewie. Um, I do think that the manly term is kind of fading out with that regard. I feel like he was in my car today because I was just talking to my boys about how, you know, we have to just love people. I feel like the definition for me, I think, of man would be to fear God, love yourself, and love others. And I feel that if you have that kind of as your heart's, uh, I guess, as your heart's core or whatever, I can't find the word for that, but I feel like that if that is the center, I guess that would be a good way to say it, of what your focus is on as a man, then I feel like that makes you a man. I feel like I'm manly in some ways because I did, like I said, I was a single mom with my oldest for years, and I had to, provide and pay bills and do those things. And he's in daycare, I'm working, I'm pushing my businesses, plus trying to spend time. So I felt like, and then I wanted to protect him in certain ways. So I don't know that I think the term manly is kind of fading out. But I do enjoy a strong man that loves to open doors for me, and I like my date nights, and I like the manners and just opening the doors. But now it's an age, like even now, my boys, they say yes, ma'am, no, sir, all that, because military background, that's what we do, and so they kind of picked up on it, and they do it too. And they would have teachers say, don't say ma'am to me. Don't do that. I'm not old. You don't call me ma'am. And they would come to me saying, tell your boys to stop telling me yes, ma'am. So it's just times are changing. I feel that. And so I think that, we have to go with the flow of the times.
Yeah, very well said. Well said. How about you, Laura? What does it take to be a manly man in the world? Is it even possible for the men out there to actually do that? What do you think?
I think you're going to love my words that are going to come out of my mouth. It's going to sound conspiracy, but like if you want to look at the control of the world, titles is all about divide and conquer, right? Titles is used for that purpose. So we all come into this world the same. A spirit, we get birthed, a human, and we are all the same. And so at the end of the day, whatever you feel is right for you is right for you. And so that word manly, it can mean different things to so many different people. And at the core of your life, you have to have your core values, you have to have your morals in place, and go live your life, follow your love, and just have love at the heart of everything that you do, and just make good choices and be a good human being. And that's all that matters. So
yeah, well said, well said. I'm going to push back on all three of you, actually, and say that I'm going to say that there's never been a time in human history where it's more important to be a man, and it's more important than ever to divide the roles between men and women. I don't believe that there's a distinction that you're just a person in the world. So I'll push right back on that, Stu. And the reason I say that is because at no time in human history have we ever been closer to a nuclear war. And the people that go to war are the men. And unless you're a man that's capable of using your physical attributes to protect the people that you care about, you're going to be left as on the receiving end of the enemy troops. And there's never been a time in history that it's more important to be a masculine blokey bloke. And I think that that is absolutely critical to our society. And the softness in our society is a cancer. I believe it's a cancer in our society only because if the worst comes to pass, you need men. You need tough, big, strong, scary dudes to go and fight on your behalf. You don't want soft, gentle, cuddly boys to go and do that. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with your views or your way of being in the world. And if you're not a blokey bloke that wants to go and run around and jump out of planes, kick doors and shoot guns, if you don't want to do that, that's completely fine. But if you are a bloke that wants to go and do that, you should go and do that. And we need you. We need you to be masculine. We need you to be macho. We need you to be tough because we need you to protect us. And we need men in our society to protect us. And we need men that want to be protectors and that want to lean into the natural inclination to actually do that. I believe that there's never been a time in history that's more important than now for men to step up and be the most masculine men possible because they're the people that protect us. You know, if there wasn't a Marine Corps, if there wasn't an army, just think about the people that you know. Think about your dads. Think about, you know, for Stu and for April, your dads, you know, they're the protectors of freedom. And, you know, I was one of those people, you know. And for Laura, you know yourself around masculine men and redneck type guys in America as well. We don't really have that here in Australia because we don't have a gun culture here in Australia. But that is, I believe, is really critical, folks. That's really critical.
Well,
I just want to open that up just for one last comment there.
Another show revolving around what you
Another
just
show?
said, my friend, because we're all sitting here going, "Bah, I want to say," and it's the end of the show. So you just dropped a bomb. You guys need to be on the next show to hear our response.
There it is. That's a nice segue to close it out. So I got the last word. It's my show, so I'm going to take the last word. Folks, make sure you reach out and connect with Laura, connect with April. All of the links are down below in the show notes. Folks, just stick around with me here at the end of the show. I want to talk to you quickly before you go. But for everybody else, thanks so much for joining us on The Unspoken Truth. Make sure you reach out on Telegram, and we'll see you again tomorrow. It's bye for now.